I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And walk you through for our agenda for today. So we just had our breakout rooms. We're really excited to have Dr. Joey Leitner present outcomes related to their Move More, Get More program. Once that's done, we'll give some updates on the physical activity plan. And we'll have an opportunity for each of you to share an update if you have some information you'd like to share with the entire group. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and get us started this morning. And we are really excited to have Dr. Joey Leitner with us today, who's going to be sharing outcomes. But before we do that, I want to share just a few reminders as we get started. Please include your name in your so we can recognize who all is with us this morning. Please mute yourself during the presentation so we avoid echoes and background noise. You may want to consider changing your view to presenter view so you can see the person speaking along with the slides and don't have pictures of everyone interfering with that. We will have the presentation available both as slides and as a recording after the meeting is over. And we are recording this presentation, so keep that in mind. We do have closed caption if anyone is in need of that. And again, don't forget to use the chat for questions as we're going through the presentation. Dr. Lightner will probably share this as you get started, but we'd like to keep this an interactive presentation, so feel free to ask questions as they come up. Just unmute yourself or raise your hand, whatever you feel most comfortable with. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Joey Leitner. He is an assistant professor and program director of the Bachelor of Science in Public Health at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. His research is focused on increasing physical activity for large populations. His current projects attempt to understand how to improve social relationships that may lead to improvements in physical activity behavior. He also enjoys improv, sporting KC matches, hiking, kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, and of course, anything that has to do with physical activity. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen and let Dr. Leitner take it away.
Thank you so much, Shelley, and thank you everyone for being here. Like Shelley said, I would much rather have a conversation and make this as interactive and useful as possible. So please, everyone, feel free to stop me at any point, anytime you have a question or a comment. That's really what we're here for. So yeah, stop me. Let me know how it is. Okay, so let's get moving. So first and foremost, I don't have any personal financial interest to disclose. This project was funded under a grant from HHS, Office of Women's Health, Office of Minority Health for 3 years. So that grant will be ending this fall, but we're working on securing additional dollars to keep Move More, Get More going, and continue on. And I'll talk about kind of the next steps associated with all that stuff at the end. So just a few housekeeping things. Again, let's have a conversation. Let's make good use of this time. The goal is to really make change, right? I think like a lot of folks on this call, I grew up on a farm, and I'm a good old farm boy who likes to get stuff done. I'm not a big talker. I'm not a big let's actually make some progress at some given point in time. My students know that. I think the people I work with know that pretty well, and so let's with that goal in mind, let's keep that there. And if anybody needs to interrupt me, if anybody needs is focused on a topic like, hey, we're working in schools and this stuff is really hard, how do you maintain relationships, or we see that these are problems, did you have these problems? How do you overcome them? We're kind of suffering with that right now. Those kind of things are really helpful to just, help everybody out and get us all moving. I will say, you know, I'm a big believer in the process. I think the process matters. And I'm a huge fan of copying what works, right? And so in public health, I come from the public health world. In public health, if something works for infant maternal health, let's figure out that process and use it for physical activity, right? Or let's, you know, figure out what's going on over here and the processes that are working over here, and copy those processes to do what we want to do, which is, you know, improve the lives of folks, you know, decrease weight, increase proper nutrition and physical activity. Last but not least, this is hard work, y'all. Like, this is really, really, really tough. I think we all have to like put that up front and just say that we could not do this without a really, really great team. And so, you know, I always have to give props when I talk about Move More, Get More. I always have to give props to Shelly. So Shelly and I both participated in the Healthcare Foundation at the time of Greater Kansas City, now the HFF, Health Forward Foundation's Leadership Academy. And you know, we met, what, Shelly, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, something, and really thought about this project and got, you know, Roosevelt Lions at Parks and Rec at the table, brought in my colleague, Amanda Grimes, who's the co-I of this project, Robin, Jordan, all the other folks that, you know, have really participated. And so if it weren't for Shelly, we would not be here today. So I always have to give, if we could just have a little round of applause for awesome work that Shelly and the weighing in team do.
I'm embarrassed.
Always.
Thank you. Yeah. That's very kind.
And of course, Katie is here. Katie has been at the beginning of this study. So Katie was my research assistant before Move More, Get More started, and this is a girl you guys have to watch, because she is making some moves, and she hasn't even graduated with her master's degree yet, and is on 4 publications. Katie, is that right? 5, and she's like, it needs to submit another one, and blah blah blah. So she's making some waves and moving stuff forward. So other partners that we have, of course, we partner with KCPS, really great partners. I can't thank them enough for all the hard work that they do. And we'll talk about some of the challenges associated with KCPS and, you know, the population that they serve. It's real stuff. It's hard, and we'll talk about that. Super thankful for the team at TMC and University Health. You know, we partner with their mobile market, and, you know, all of their folks over there. Of course, the weighing in staff and the Center for Children's Healthy Lifestyles and Nutrition at CMH. KC Parks and Rec has helped deliver our physical activity interventions with Maddie Rhodes and Trilogy Sports and Fitness, as well as other folks like Nikki Jones, who does Nikki Fit. If you don't know Nikki, she is 110% awesome, and we love working with her. And Makita Burton, who does Yoga on the Vine. All of those folks have been, you know, instrumental to that process. Whoop. And I think I might have, there you go, sorry. I clicked on the chat and I probably shouldn't have. So let's talk about Move More, Get More. So today I'm going to give you kind of just a brief overview of the project over the last 3 years, talk about the physical activity and nutrition outcomes, talk about some of the stuff we've learned around physical literacy. I'm going to pass it over to Katie to just briefly mention body image, even though I didn't give her the heads up to do that. So thanks, Katie. Sorry about that. And I didn't make a slide, so you have to like just wing it. So talk about social integration, lessons learned and next steps. So again, you know, we know why we're all here. So youth are not getting enough physical activity to meet, to achieve health benefits. Only about 25% of youth in the best measurements engage in the recommended 60 minutes of aerobic, moderate to vigorous physical activity a day. Very few of those youth, in addition, are receiving the 3 days of bone strengthening and muscle strengthening activities. We know that physical activity is essential for good health and growth in kids. We know it's really, really important for cognitive functioning. You know, kids that are not moving are not learning. And so we really have to, you know, change the education paradigm at some given point in time to make sure that kids are moving in order to learn. And then, you know, something that I think we all forget, we always talk about health and physical activity. We rarely talk about emotional health and physical activity. So classroom behavior, school performance, you know, just the stuff around being a kid and being a, a physical creature, all of that kind of stuff plays into all of these other things that we do, right? So we know that kids who have a healthy body image, who can move their bodies, who feel good in their skin, are more emotionally healthy. And so, physical activity is important for all of these things. I will say that schools are ideal locations for physical activity. If we can have a captive audience, kids spend most of their time in schools. And we know that the evidence is really clear that kids get more physical activity in school than they do at home. And that the disparity has increased for racial and ethnic minority youth. So racial and ethnic minority youth get the proportion of physical activity comes more from their school time than from home time. And again, I think when we talk about all these things, we have to make sure to keep a health equity lens and say that, hey, environments dictate behavior, other things dictate behavior, and these are not largely individual level choices, especially for kids, right? If we look at the social ecological model, we can see that, kids don't have volitional control. They don't have control over a lot of the aspects of their lives. And so environments really do dictate more so than adults, kids' physical activity levels. So hopefully we all know this, that public health agenda setting organizations like the CDC, NIH, NACCHO, FAB, all of those organizations consistently suggest that we need to be moving towards scalable interventions, moving away from individual level interventions to these organizational and community level approaches, trying to understand how to implement interventions, especially in underserved communities. So the idea, I think, is, physical activity is the ultimate goal. And if we can change that, great, right? If we can't change that, are we doing something else that has maybe unintended consequences that are either good or bad? How do we make incremental progress towards, the steps that precede a change in physical activity? All of those things are really important. And at the end of the day, we need realistic, real world approaches to increasing physical activity, right? I think the days of studies in which we spend $1 million on 10 people, I think those days have ended. And we really have to understand that, if we increase a little bit of physical activity for a larger population, then that's kind of where we need to move. So I'm going to play this little video about Move More, Get More. This just kind of gives a brief overview. So let me make sure to turn my speakers up. And we can put this link, Katie, will you put this link in the chat? We find it on YouTube and put it in the chat. So you can have it as a reference.
The Move More, Get More program is a physical activity and nutrition intervention specifically targeting middle school students in under-resourced areas. We had Garmin watches on about 60 kids, and we saw that their physical activity dropped in half from pre-pandemic to when the schools closed down. So we know it's a great need, and all of our participants received different sports equipment like soccer ball, football, yoga mats. And so we try to play on those and give them ideas of how to be more active. Playing sports is a great way to make bonds with other people, make friends. So it not only builds our physical health, but also builds our social wellness and other capacities in our mental health.
I think it's important to exercise because, if you sit at home all day, we're not really doing nothing or moving, your body gonna feel real, kind of tired, or you don't feel like really doing nothing or having motivation.
Out there, and they're gone. They've been gone for years. So you guys have brought the ray of sunshine back to this environment. We appreciate you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Grocery stores that they used to go to in their neighborhoods are no longer there. where they could get easy access to produce, and that's just not available to them anymore. And so having the mobile market here in their neighborhood really helps them have access to healthy foods that they want to have otherwise.
And the knowledge, they gave also recipes and things to help them understand how to use, not just give them the fruits and veggies, but also give them examples of how to use them.
Being involved with Move More, Get More is really fulfilling. We've built relationships with these families that come week after week, and they tell us how much they appreciate the work we're doing and the gaps that we filled in their life.
It's just eye-opening though, because I've been on it for so long and I've seen them really grow up and they're getting excited. I'm like, wow, we're really making a difference in their lives. They're getting interested not only in physical activity and nutrition, but education. Like it pushes them, urges them to go to school, and we talk about colleges and interests. So it's huge.
It's something that I foresee using in their daily routine of things, fruit, veggies, and exercising. It's a very big major part of public health.
So that kind of gives just a brief overview of Move More, Get More. But, again, the schools are awesome. The folks, the kids that we have in the intervention are great. The parents are always fun. The team that we have delivering this work, Katie, Bridget, Ella, all of the other folks, the support staff that are helping to evaluate and doing all that stuff that we're going to learn about today. Evelyn, Robin Shook, Emily Hurley, all of these great people have contributed to this work. Okay, so the goals of Move More, Get More, of course, are to increase physical activity. The way we do that is through a community-based participatory research sports sampling after school program. That's a mouthful. Essentially, what that means is every couple of weeks, we at the beginning of the year, we kind of ask the kids, what do you guys want to do? What does that look like? We continually ask them what they want to learn and what they want to play. And then every couple of weeks, we try and change that. Now, sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't, right? And this is the community-based work that we do. So I'll give an example of Central, right? The kids at Central, they want to play basketball. That's what they want, right? We try to get them to do other things. And then at the end of the day, they're picking up basketballs by themselves in order to play basketball. So at some point, we're like, okay, we're going to try and expose these kids to, other things that they may not be interested in. But if basketball is what they're interested in and what's going to get them active, then let's move on and do what the kids want to do. Other schools are different. So other schools, we can take a much more every 2 week change the schedule approach where they get to kind of learn whatever they want to learn. I will say that we've learned a lot of lessons in what not to do. So baseball is a horrible idea, just so everybody knows. Giving kids baseball bats and balls is a challenge. We learned some lessons, but you don't know until you know. The second goal is to, of course, improve nutrition. We do that through a mobile market delivery. So every week, every kid gets a bag of produce that's valued at about $20. And it changes based on essentially what the University Health mobile market can get for cheap. And so there's kind of basic staple items like potatoes and onions and that kind of stuff in there. But then there's always, different fruits and vegetables that the kids may not have been exposed to before, as well as, educational material and how to eat those fruits and veggies. So I think Shelley's always talks about how do you cut a mango, right? Or an avocado. And so things like that are always very helpful when, we're exposing kids to new fruits and vegetables. I will say that we learned very early on that grapes or handheld, sugary fruit was the most valued among these kids. And we'll kind of talk about some of the formative work that we've done to help elicit that information. Last but not least, we always want to improve equity. And so we focus in KCPS, which is really the most marginalized district in the metro, in really those schools that need it the most. These schools are not randomized. They were chosen by the district as the schools that are most in need of this intervention. So first lesson early on we called this the Youth Engagement in Sports Project. The kids did not like that name. And so we have an advisory group that we would get together, and very quickly the advisory group was like, we got to change its name. Let's make it happen. Let's change it. Let's move on with life. And so the advisory group chose Move More, Get More. And so that's why this project is named that way. It speaks to, what the advisory group and what the kids want. And we're happy to call it that. Emily, Hurley, Robin, and the team, Evelyn, Kim, Emily, other Emily, helped early on before we even started this intervention to do some formative research. We wanted to get kids, families together and understand, hey, what's going to make this the best project for you? How do we do this? And so this is before COVID. And we'll talk about kind of the outcomes after COVID, but before COVID, the kids really said that they want something fun. They want to be able to like hang out with their friends. Some of them wanted competition, others didn't, right? And, they want incentives. They want like things that are new and fun that are going to keep them coming, right? Kids want fresh fruits and vegetables, just like everyone else, right? We would like food that tastes good. And so, these kids, one of the major complaints about fruits and vegetables, if we look down at the bottom, is that, they don't like soggy lettuce. Like I don't like soggy lettuce, once it starts to get just a little bit brown, I got to throw it away. I can't do it, like that's something that we all kind of need to keep, in our mind. Kids just like me don't like, a lot of kids don't like super pungent food. Like I didn't like asparagus when I was growing up. Surprise, surprise, So, I think that if we're gonna meet kids where they're at, we got to kind of help them out and do what they think is the best. Our team, we take this as a core component that, people know best for their lives. And so if somebody doesn't like broccoli, somebody doesn't like asparagus, then don't give them broccoli and asparagus. Food needs to be easy to make. It needs to be convenient. Kids early on very clearly said that like they don't have time to be active. They're worried about after school time and competing demands, just like adults are. I don't know if that's and we could talk about the sociology of all this stuff. I don't know if that's a concept of like kids being overbooked or what's going on in today's world, but kids, in middle school are already reporting that time as a problem. And then, of course, there's always the social discomfort of physical activity, right? And so that includes what clothes to wear, what shoes to wear, all of that kind of stuff. But it also includes, how to like appropriately behave in a gym environment. Like if I sweat or if I'm not good at playing basketball or I'm not good at these kind of things, right? All of that's uncomfortable. And so how do we expose kids to new sports? How do we get them moving? How do we get them to enjoy physical activity while also kind of mitigating these social discomforts? And then, of course, on the fruits and vegetables fronts again, kids in general don't like vegetables. And then if it lacks convenience or it takes too much time to prepare, kids aren't going to want to engage in that. So what is Move More, Get More? So the design is we use a quasi-experimental, no tension control design. We have 3 intervention schools. These are all middle schools in KCPS. So Central Middle, Northeast, and Lincoln Prep. And then we have 1 control school, Hogan Prep. I will say that all of these schools are similar on so many dimensions. Every time we run any kind of differences tests among these schools, they're all the same, or they don't report any difference. Anecdotally, there are a few differences to these schools. Katie knows this better than anybody else. Lincoln Prep, kids have to be, parents have to kind of opt in. They have to fill out an application. They have to want their kids to go to Lincoln Prep. It's not kind of the default school for kids. And we see that in kind of some of the behavior stuff with the kids and, just the resources at Lincoln Prep. Northeast, has a high Hispanic population as well as like an immigrant population, different schools. And so, one of the things that we see at Northeast is like kids like to play soccer, and that's totally cool. Central, I think Central is probably the toughest school that we worked in. It's tough. It's a tough school to work in. The administration is awesome at Central. I cannot speak enough about the leadership of that school. The kids are awesome. They're a ton of fun. They've always engaged with the staff and have fun. And so we've tried to tailor the intervention staff to each of these schools. So at Northeast, this last year, Maddie Rhodes ran the intervention at Northeast. Maddie Rhodes is I forget, I just read it. They're like 100-year-old organization, 150 years old. But they're a Hispanic managed, started organization in the Northeast and have, great connections to that population. They're from that population. They, are all bilingual. And so that's, super helpful. So we try to tailor, the intervention staff to the kids that are in the school. Central and Lincoln, same way. So at Central, Kansas City Parks and Rec has delivered the intervention at Central for the last 3 years. At the end of last year, they lost some staff, and so we had to make up some time there. But KC Parks and Rec was a great partner in delivering the intervention at Central. And they had a lot of overlap between the intervention kids at Central and all of the other stuff that they do in the community. And so that was a great thing for the intervention staff. They were coaching at our program, but then also coaching at the local, Parks and Rec office. And so, they would see the kids and build rapport and do all that stuff. At Lincoln this last year, we had Trilogy Sports. So they're a for-profit company, but the coaches of Trilogy are awesome. They're rigorous, they're cool, they push the kids, they can build relationships with these kids really, really well. And really, I think they were the best partner for that school. And so I think one of the lessons learned is that how do you put the puzzle pieces together so that it works, right? That's a really, really hard thing to do. I think after 3 years, we kind of started that. So the core components of Move More, Get More, and this is really important for fidelity if we plan to scale this intervention. So 2 to 3 physical activity sessions a week, at least 60 minutes. Now we try to get the kids active for at least 60 minutes, but you'll see that that's not actually the case. 20-pound bag of produce each week. We try to make a fun, inclusive environment. That's a core component. It needs to be fun, it needs to be inclusive. It needs to be culturally appropriate, have bi-weekly sports sampling, right? Those are the 4 core components. So what do we measure? So we measured physical activity through accelerometry. Every youth got a Garmin VivoFit 4 that they were told to wear throughout the duration of the intervention. That's a super challenge, as our staff knows. But the best data have come from these accelerometers that we have. And so I highly, highly recommend that if you're thinking about collecting physical activity data, do it by accelerometry. It's much better quality data, even though it's a challenge to get. We also use the IPAC, the self-report physical activity. We measured physical literacy through kind of a self-report measure of this, I'm so comfortable moving my body this way and in this environment and doing all this other stuff. I might mention, let me define this real quick. Physical literacy is essentially your confidence in your ability to move your body, right? How can you jump? Can you hop? Can you run? Can you walk backwards? Can you do other things in other environments? So in the cold, in a gym, in the pool, right? All of these different things. This is on a scale of 0 to 100, 100 being completely physically literate or proficient in physical literacy, 0 being not at all. So kids can rate themselves early on, and we'll talk about this in a minute. Early on, we had parents rate them too. And then we did an objective measure. The Play Basic is an objective measure of physical literacy, where research assistants literally watch them hop, jump, kick a ball, throw a ball, run, walk backwards, and we measure it that way. For nutrition, we measured it using a modified 2019 Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And of course, for BMI, we have objective and subjective height and weight. So we got started, and then in February of 2020, and then the pandemic hit. So we had about 80 kids enrolled, both intervention and control. These kids did not get an intervention, right? They were in this intervention for like a week or 2 weeks, maybe 10 days, but like we were just getting up and running. It wasn't, we just started and then all the schools closed. So we had accelerometers on these kids. And the good thing about these accelerometers is we get the data on the back end. So we pull the data from Garmin's API. We don't have to see the kids again, right? So when the pandemic hit, you know, we gave these kids the accelerometers on day one, right? There is this testing bias or testing intervention, if you will, with the accelerometers. Once kids know their steps, they become a little bit more active. That very quickly goes back down to baseline. And we see that, you know, the schools closed March 13th because of the day before my birthday. And it was literally right between week 4 and week 5. So right here is when the schools closed. So you can see that kids are getting, you know, this much roughly physical activity these first 4 weeks. After the school closed between weeks 4 and 5, their physical activity decreased. So this is one of the studies that's published that really shows, you know, that kids MVPA decreased about 43% during school closures, right? These numbers have not rebounded for control students, FYI. So the kids are still way below what they should be. And so we did some focus groups, and kids noted that they were, you know, being inside a lot, they lacked motivation, they were playing more video games. And parents, of course, noted that, you know, physical activity was slowing down, they don't want to play. Girls are at a stage where they want to quit activities. And so I think that there's a lot of social stuff that's wrapped up in the pandemic and these kids' physical activity. So I think the thing to take home is that we need to dig ourselves out of this hole that the pandemic has created in terms of physical activity. We all got shots, thank God for modern science. And we move forward. So, you know, in year 1, we had about 87 kids. This kind of shifted online after 2 weeks of enrollment. Year 2 is really hard to recruit kids for an online physical activity intervention, as you can imagine. Year 3 is this last year. So we had about 228 kids, 100% in person. So this is the demographic breakdown of the kids in year 3. So about 8% Black or African American, about 2-ish% a white non-Hispanic or Hispanic, and then, you know, very minimal Asian, Hawaiian, not Native Hawaiian, and other Pacific Islanders. We see that we had more males than females, more boys than girls in this intervention. It's really common, but I'm actually really proud of this spread because it's not, you know, 90-10. And so we did kind of try to over recruit girls, and that was part of our overall design. And so you see that in some of the marketing material that we have and some of the other stuff. So let's talk about the results. So when we talk about physical activity, we don't talk about the baseline results because we give the kids accelerometers, we get them into the intervention, right? So there's no baseline number for our accelerometry data. That's why we have a control group, right? So we can see the difference between intervention and control. It doesn't make sense. And like, this is part of real research, you know, real world research that is really hard. You can't give a kid an accelerometer, tell them to sit at home for 2 weeks and not do anything, and then expect them to like come back in 2 weeks and like be participating, right? So we can use other methods to understand what's going on. So at the end, these are data from April of this year. So we see that in the intervention group, on average, kids were engaging in about 105 minutes of MVPA per week, right? It's not great. It's not 420 like it should be, right? But it's 105 minutes of MVPA per week. The control group is literally half that though. So yeah, so on average, these kids, and we see this throughout throughout the control group, these kids are getting about 50 minutes of MVPA per week. And so just doubling that, God bless, like we're doing our job, right? If we can double kids' physical activity through, you know, 2 days of an hour, you know, after school program where kids get to have fun, I'm more than happy to make that happen and you know, provide that intervention. So I think this is good. It's not, again, you know, when we think about real world approaches, this isn't everything, right? This needs to be coupled with active transportation to school. It needs to be coupled with better PE. It needs to be coupled with, you know, less screen time at home and more things to do after school. So 2 to 3 days a week of, you know, after school program can double physical MVPA for these kids. Steps are the same way. So, we see that on average, the control students engaged about 5,000 steps a day, and kids in the intervention were getting more than double that. So,
Hey, Joey,
yeah.
quick question on that slide. So 10,000 steps a day is reasonably good. How does that, is that separate from the MVPA, or is the moderate to vigorous physical activity, when they were getting that, steps are included in that?
Yes, it's included. It's 2 different measures, right? So
Yeah.
MVPAs have to be, you know, 10 minutes or more, blah, 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 whatever, of that definition. They're 2 separate measures, but yes, steps are included in the MVPA.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but double control students. So this is all measured by accelerometry. So I think, again, we need to measure more by accelerometry. It's hard data to get, but the quality of data is so much better. So what about nutrition? So these are percentages of kids who said that they ate at least 1 fruit or 1 vegetable or drink soda or drink sports drinks in the last day, right? So this is a very easy measure for kids to understand. It's not an ideal measure, but it gets at what we can get at. And this was actually mandated by our funder. Go ahead,
But
Shelley.
it's just one.
At
I
least,
can't remember the question in the, you said the youth risk behavior survey. I can't remember what the question is. It's really just, did you eat at least one?
at least 1, right? So fruit, kids are eating fruit, right? Well, and that's good. We need antioxidants and fiber and all that stuff. So at baseline, kids were eating 73% or so of kids, and these are all statistically significant, I should say that, but 73% of kids, we increased that by about 10%. Not great, but a little bit. More kids are eating vegetables, again, not a lot amount, right? So this is 10% of kids, more vegetables, more soda also, so that's interesting. Less sports drinks. Interesting, being a sports sampling program, that they're not drinking as much Gatorade and stuff. This probably has a little bit of an intervention effect from our coaches, right? Because we are very clear that we're not giving sports drinks or soda or anything during our intervention, and I think that kind of gets spread to the kids, saying you don't need that, it's all sugar anyways, so hopefully that's a appropriate thing. So these are statistically significant results. I think increasing fruits and vegetables is a great thing. If we could do this on a population level, I think it would make a difference, right? If we could do this for every kid in the district, maybe we would see some improvements. I would be curious to couple this with what kids are not eating. So if they are eating, 5% of kids, 6% of kids are eating more vegetables, right? Then are those kids not eating, pizza and fast food and that kind of stuff? So I think more research really needs to be done here. I'm not a nutrition expert, FYI. So if anybody would like to help out with that, we would love to partner you with some kids, and you can do a whole bunch of focus groups and figure out what's going on here. Practically, I think we have to understand that changing these behaviors is really hard, right? And so I would be interested in your guys' perception. Is this, worth it? Is it not? What do you guys think next steps are here? I think that would be I would love your input on that kind of stuff.
Here's a question I have related to that, Joey. You said 20 pounds of produce was provided to each participant per week, right? That's a lot of produce.
Yeah.
How much was wasted?
That's a great question. And that's something I always kind of struggle with, right? Because I waste a lot of produce, and so I can't hold somebody else to a standard that I myself can't hold to a standard too. So what's the number, Shelley? 40% of all produce is thrown away.
I don't know it off the top of my head.
I think,
but there's a decent amount. And if you just think about practically and what our own behavior is. So you just said it, I throw quite a bit away myself because once that lettuce gets brown, you know, who's eating it? How do we do better with that?
Well, and I will say that not only does a lot of it get thrown away, but a lot of it gets thrown at other kids too. And so on the bus home, they were like throwing blueberries and stuff. And like, so we had to like be like, kids, calm down. You can't be, that goes in your mouth, not at, you know, your friend. So real world, right? I want to talk a little bit about physical literacy because I do think that this is more of a newer topic in the field. Katie wrote a really great paper, really just describing the physical literacy of these kids. And in that paper, you know, we state that the number one activity that these kids participated in, 85% watching TVs and movies, followed by doing homework, house chores, 70% reported walking, reading, you know, playing video games, running, using Facebook, jogging, playing a musical instrument. But these, you know, these do change by race, ethnicity group. And so, you know, very few kids reported like water activities in the last, I think it was the last year, right, Katie, is that measure? Any kind of like snow activities, you know, other things that are kind of like weird or fun, which I really enjoy, like sailing or, you know, kiteboarding. But, you know, so we have a lot of work to do on this. And this is just a very descriptive study. But if we look at the outcomes of physical literacy, so again, intervention and control, these are numbers, these are average scores from 0 to 100, 100 being completely like physically proficient, right? In all ways that we measure, 0 being completely not proficient, not at all proficient. So in the control group, the average physical literacy score was around 50. In the intervention group, that was increased by about 50%. It's right at like 76, I think. So, so we're definitely increasing this kid's physical literacy through like playing different types of sports and having to kind of like learn how to move your body different ways. I think there are definitely like pros to that in terms of like long-term physical activity. And we see that physical literacy is really important for, you know, if we can increase physical literacy, then kids are more likely to participate in sport long-term. So.
I have a quick question. Was this the play self results or the play basic ones?
These are the play basic ones. So this is the objectively measured physical literacy. Yeah. Katie, I'm going to pause there for a second. Thanks for jumping in. Do you want to talk a little bit about body image?
I'll do my best. So, yeah, so one of the things Dr. Lightner mentioned at the beginning of this presentation was what we found barriers to being physically active was that discomfort of being physically active. So one of the things we ended up looking at was we wanted to see the relationship among physical activity, physical literacy, and positive body image. And so we did 2 separate pathway analysis for objective and subjective measures of physical literacy. And what we found was that body image, well, physical activity was related to objective and subjective measures of physical literacy. But physical activity related to physical literacy was, there was a stronger relationship between the self-reported, which is the subjective, than there was between the objective, which was kind of interesting to us. But then if you looked at physical literacy, there was more of a relationship with the self-report on higher positive body image scores than there was with the objective as well. The objective, the physical literacy, there still was moderate significance related to, it's a lot, sorry, body image. So kind of a brief overview, and I would be more than happy to answer more in depth on details like what that looked like and like how we analyzed fully on that. So
Katie, I think the take-home message from the paper that you're finishing up is there's no direct relationship, and the science has been really clear on this. It's really hard to show a direct relationship between kids' body image and physical activity, right? That link It's just not there in the science. And sometimes it pops in, but it's a weak relationship and like, it's just not there. However, if we put physical literacy in the middle of that relationship, then it all comes out really clear that kids' body image is tied to their physical literacy, and their physical literacy is tied to physical activity, right? And so we hypothesize that, you know, if we want to change physical activity, we can do that through body image, but there's not a direct relationship, right? We have to couple that with physical literacy and moving kids' bodies so that they can say, hey, you know, like no body's perfect. My body's not perfect. Your body's not perfect. Who cares, right? But I have confidence in my body. I can do, you know, what I want to do, and that translates to physical activity. Katie?
Well, and I think that's where talking about the self-reported measurement was the most important, because it's their own perception of how comfortable they are moving their body, being confident, knowledgeable, and maintaining physical activity. And so that's why that makes it really important to focus on that, because it's boosting their confidence to be physically literate, to have a higher body image. So
yeah, so super interesting results there. And I think that speaks to like we have to think of this in the real world, right? And part of that's social integration. So I don't know about you guys, but I like my friends, right? I enjoy spending time with people. Yeah, I'm an extrovert, but the pandemic has made me more introverted, you know? And, you know, we know that social influences to health are very, very strong. The concept of social integration, how often you spend time with friends and family, has been shown in the research to be a better predictor of mortality than smoking, right? If you have cancer, if a person has cancer and they are socially isolated, the outcomes of that cancer are terrible. It's really bad, right? If you do not have people to rely on and do not have somebody to talk to for emotional support or financial support, or, you know, all of the aspects of social support, then your health outcomes are not going to be good. And so we know that there's some of my past research has shown that social integration is predictive of physical activity for adults. And this is over like 25 years, right? It's 25-year longitudinal studies have shown this. I can give you the reference to that paper if you'd like. I really like that paper. But so we wanted to measure that with kids too. And I think, as just a person, right? I think that kids who play with their friends are probably going to play more, right? If they're around their friends more often, they're going to like, you know, I don't know, hit each other or like chase after each other, or something else is going to happen and they're going to move, or they're going to go to the mall, or they're going to, you know, just walk more, or they're going to do something. And the kids in this intervention, if we measure time with family, time spent with family and time spent with friends, we see that there's no relationship, or, you know, we can't detect a relationship between moderate intensity physical activity and time spent with family or friends. However, for vigorous intensity physical activity, we see that those kids who spend more time with friends engage in more vigorous intensity physical activity. This relationship is pretty strong. So it's, you know, a beta of 0.3. And so if we get a beta of 0.3 in any of our studies, I'm like overwhelmingly happy, you know? So that means there's about a 1 to 3 relationship here. So because these are standard deviation changes, as the standard deviation, as time spent with friends increases by 1 standard deviation, time spent in vigorous intensity physical activity increases by 0.3 standard deviations. That's huge, right? Because we know that standard deviation of physical activity is very, very, very large. So these are really great like relationships, and we know that kids need to spend more time with friends. If we think of nutrition, on the other hand, family becomes really important. So time spent with family is predictive of kids' fruit and vegetable intake. So as kids spend more time with family, they eat more fruits and vegetables. This is not the case for friends, right? We see a little bit of maybe a potential relationship here with friends and fruit, but really nothing else, and nothing along associated with sleep either. So we measured sleep too.
Hey, Joey.
Yeah.
Is that related at all to family meals? So there was some research, I don't know, it's been probably 10 or 15 years by now, where they looked at family meals and found that kids who engage in family meals more often had better nutritional diet had better diet, had higher nutritional quality in their diets.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. I think that makes sense, right? Because when you're with your family, again, kids don't have volitional control, right? And so when you're with your family, maybe your mom is going to throw some vegetables on your plate regardless. We didn't measure, family like dinner. We could, and we would welcome anybody here on the call that wants to help us with that to jump in. Again, we try to study nutrition. We're mostly physical activity researchers, but. So those are the main outcomes. We'll have more, don't worry. And we'll keep, move more, get more going so we can continue studying these things. So if there is something that you're interested in studying, let us know and we can hopefully try and collect a measure on it. But I wanted to talk about some of the lessons learned and kind of move us forward into like, how do we, actually change the world? So some of the lessons. Use accelerometry to measure physical activity, not self-report. It's a much, much better measure. I can't express enough like the difference in those two. School environments are really important, right? And safety associated with school environments and or outside environments becomes a very, very, very important predictor of if these kids show up and what you can do. So let me give you an example. If a school has a parent who comes in and, does something that makes the school have to cancel all after school activities, right? That's happened. It happens more often than I would like. You got to roll with it, right? We have to roll with it and like make it happen. If the school is going to cancel activities, then we have to move on with life. We can't stop that. Same thing with safety. So you guys know that last year, we lost a kid in Northeast Middle because of a, violent attack. And these are between kids, and so safety becomes a major problem that we have to devote a lot of attention and energy to. I don't think it's a reason to not do these interventions in schools. I think it's really important that we use physical activity to improve kids' lives and hopefully prevent some of these, deleterious things that come along with being socially isolated and being, alone and all of the things that are happening in the world. I think physical activity has a role to play here and to improve these kids' lives. And I think physical activity can be used as an intervention for behavioral things. And I think the science is really clear that it can as well. We've always ran into space and conflicting activities. There's a lot of stuff going on through schools. How do we find the space? How do we do what we want to do? We love going outside, but it gets hot in the summer in Kansas City and cold in the winter, right? And so we got to be flexible. And we've done stuff in hallways before. We've done stuff in auditoriums. We've figured it out and made it happen. And thank God we have like excellent coaches who can figure out fun activities on the fly. Family factors and responsibilities are really important, especially for certain groups of families that we have in our intervention. So, one of the reasons some girls don't participate is because they have to go home and like watch their like little brothers and sisters, right? These are middle school kids who have younger siblings at home who, they have those responsibilities. How do we mitigate that? How do we, either help that out or figure out how to, get them involved while also understanding that this is the world that these kids live in? We haven't figured that out yet, but we're working on it. Weather is always a challenge. Behavior is always a challenge, especially, when kids have been cooped up for 2 years and they get back in school and want to fight. And then we give them baseball bats. And it's just like, again, terrible idea. Don't do it. What works? So these kids are susceptible to marketing and they want it. It's like crazy. When we started, we're just like, oh, we'll just show up and like have fun. Nope. You need to hire a marketing person. You need quality materials. If there's anything like not cool, then kids are like, oh no, like that's not okay. I deserve like Nike level quality over here.
Did you figure out how hip you are or aren't during this?
Seriously, right? And like, I'm not hip at all, guys. I'm like the most boring person on the planet. And so I was like, we got to figure this out. Luckily, we have Katie, who is pretty hip.
Lies. That was not me. I was going to mention the water bottles, though. Like they loved them at first, but only because they could use them against each other. So, but it was it worked.
And I should say had Katie, because she got accosted by our friends who we love. School transportation is really important, especially for this group. You know, their parents are not going to pick them up at 5 o'clock. And so getting, the after school activities bus to take them home was really essential. We had multiple methods of community with participants. I honestly have no idea what that means, guys. Yeah. I will say that, our coaches, our research assistants, all of the folks that were at all of the schools had really good rapport with the kids. These, Katie, Ella, Bridget, Denise, all acted as mentors to these kids. And I think that relationship is something that is understudied and that we should do a better job of. But, having rapport, these kids are people, and they want friends and they want to, be appreciated just like anybody else. Thank God we have a strong, really, really valuable school administrators and partners at all of our schools. Those relationships are really hard to establish and maintain, but they're very, very worth it. Of course, engaging with families is always really important. And, we love the families that we have. And of course, some kids don't like what we're doing, right? And so if we're playing volleyball or basketball or whatever, and they want to go walk or, play Frisbee, we have to facilitate that. So you have to have alternative activities. So, we're working on sustainability for Move More, Get More. We have, I think, a good plan and making it happen, but we're still working on that. Dr. Grimes and I just submitted an NIH R01 to scale up to all middle schools across the metropolitan area of Kansas City. So that would be a really fun project if we got funded to do that. It would take several years and, really understanding how to scale up something like this to different schools that have different needs, how to adapt Move More, Get More, keeping those core components, but really adapting it to local school environments. Understanding the cost effectiveness of the stuff. So one of the things that I'm really interested in is if we can get these kids to double their physical activity in middle school, what happens at age 40? What's that long-term, if it costs, I don't know, $20 an hour to get these kids active at age 10, what's the long-term impact of that? And how can the public health system, afford that? Because we all know it's really important.
Well, and knowing that might increase opportunities for whether it's policy or just practice within states related to physical education.
Exactly right.
Or recess, even. If we knew that there was a relationship, now we're going to make sure that kids do get recess and do get gym class or PE or whatever you want to call it all the way through high school, not just one class in high school.
Well, and Shelly, if I could just add on to that, I started calling my midday breaks. Either I go to the gym or I go for a walk or I do something. I started calling that recess. And I think it's the best thing on the planet, right?
Adults still need recess.
Yeah, of course. I can't, just like a kid, I can't work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday without taking a break. My brain doesn't, it's too much, Academic attainment and social behavior are really interesting things that we need to take a look at. We just haven't had the capacity to do it yet. And then of course, other determinants like body image, social networks, minority stress, all these other things are really, really important. And I think in the next few years, we'll get to it. But now that we have Move More, Get More up and running after the pandemic, after all the challenges associated with that stuff, I think we can devote more time and energy to that. So I want to thank everybody for all of this. I want to open it up for questions and discussion, and really if there's a way we can partner or anything else that our team can do to help schools or anybody else help get kids active. That's what we're here for.
Thanks, Joey. That was excellent. Great information to share. What questions does the group have for Dr. Lightner and his team?
Hey, I do have a question. I'm Allison. I'm with Johnson County Park and Rec. If we wanted to try and just get data and information for current programs? Would we need to have one of your staff there to collect the data for it to be an official study?
And yes and no. I would be happy to chat about that and just design kind of the best way to do that. We can either help you and just like, act as consultants to like, help you through that process. We're happy to like also do a study. It just depends on kind of what level of rigor we want and need. And, there's multiple. The thing about the research that we do is there's multiple ways to do it, right? One way is necessarily not better than another. We are never going to do like, clinical, like randomized control trial design stuff because it's too difficult. So I guess the easy answer is let's chat about it. And we can kind of either guide you in a good direction or, help jump on and do a super rigorous study.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. Let me put my email address in the chat too, so you guys have it. Of course, you can always just Google, we're academics. You can always just Google us and all of our stuff will always come up.
What other questions does the group have?
Joey, I'm Lee Kurtek, Program Director with Girls on the Run, and so many similarities when all of the things you were saying, your obstacles, your successes, what the challenges are, I can so relate. So our program, we've been very successful in the elementary schools within KCPS, and we work closely with Link to make Girls on the Run happen, and it falls off at the middle schools. I'm just wondering if there's opportunity. You talk about having difficulty getting girls. The curriculum that we have is all about social skills and body image and all of those things and integrating it with movement. If our curriculum could somehow be integrated with what you are doing, and similar to Allison, I think like all the testing and the results that you're getting from it would be amazing to see what that looks like for our curriculum too.
I love it, Lee. Yeah, absolutely. You guys, can I just, Lee, Girls on the Run, you guys do such a good job. Like I am impressed by just all of the good work that you do. And as a triathlete, right, I have to, as a runner, I thank you for bringing, more girls to the sport. We need it. So I would say two things. Yes. Well, one of the things that we've always tried to do with Move More, Get More that we haven't been able to get off the ground is essentially have community groups like Girls on the Run, like the Missouri Conservation Office that could take people like hiking and kayaking and those kind of things to get them into the schools to like, come in for a couple of weeks, do a short session to get kids interested or like whatever, or recruit, and then move forward that way. That's always been an interest of mine, and so happy to like think about what that looks like for Lee, for Girls on the Run, for anybody else here. I think that would make a really cool, interesting thing, right? That we can show kids that like, hey, there's a lot of different things in the world. Have fun. On the flip side, we're also happy to like figure out how to take your curriculum, or not take your, to evaluate your curriculum in a rigorous way that you guys can then use to, for funders or for, to help the world out. Because guys, can we just say that like Girls on the Run, it works, right? We know it works. We know that it gets girls active. It's not, how do I say this? We need to evaluate it so that we can show other people critically that it works, because that's what research is here for, right? Let's like use research to make the world a better place. And when something works like that, we know it anecdotally, but let's test it empirically so that we can really see what aspects does it work for, what is the effect size, what is all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So
and on a personal note, I will also say, I'm having lunch with Nikki Jones this afternoon. She is also one of my favorite people on the planet. And she has been a Girls on the Run coach as well. So
guys, seriously, Nikki she's so cool.
So cool.
Yeah.
Lee, I'm glad you brought that up because I actually had written a note down about that. How does this potentially relate to or interact with Girls on the Run, and how can we, bring that, like you were saying, to or expand that across middle schools, or bring it to middle schools and KCPS, or quite honestly, any other school district that may not have very many teams. What else? We probably have about 1 more minute. Any other questions for Joey?
I have a quick nutrition related question. This is Lisa Lauer from Missouri Department of Health. And with our CDC Missouri Healthy Schools grant, we get a lot of questions about energy drinks and things like that. I know you didn't mention that in you mentioned the soda and other, did you look into that at all? The consumption of energy drinks in the middle school age?
We didn't. Again, we're so focused on physical activity and less focused on nutrition. I will say, no, we don't have any great data to support any of that stuff. I will say that on more than one occasion, I can't remember if it was Monster or Red Bull or which, they had cases. Katie, do you want to talk about this?
Well, I was going to say, just being in the school and an observational standpoint, it's very prevalent in the schools. It's just not something we measured for, but we did see a lot of energy drink consumption from the students, especially before engaging in the after school sessions. So just from an observational stance, I personally believe it's a problem.
That's what we have, nurses that are very worried, that report, they're worried about it. So I just wondered.
Yeah, we need to do a better job at that stuff. I mean, there's so much work to do. And again, all of this stuff is super difficult, right? So if you want to do a good job with this, small thing, it takes so much energy. And then, there's all these other problems that we have to think of too. I want to just say again, thank you so much to all of our friends, partners, staff. I cannot, this last 3 years has been a tough journey through the pandemic, through getting these kids active, through all of this stuff. And it would not be possible without Shelly, without Robin, without Emily, without Katie and Evelyn, and on all of the great, folks that we have on all of these different studies. You guys are awesome. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Joey. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to share the outcomes of this great project with us. And we look forward to more opportunities with you and helping to expand ways to increase physical activity for middle schoolers across the metro. Okay, well, we're going to transition into some other updates. I want us to take just a quick little break to stand up, stretch a little bit, move around for just a second so our butts don't get too tired. We did have a physical activity break planned that was going to be led by a member of the healthcare sector for the physical activity plan. But as you can imagine, being in the healthcare sector, she got called out. So really, and I'm no great physical activity lead. So I don't know, Joey, if you want to lead us in anything, but I would encourage you all to get up, stand up, move, however you want to, and take, let's say, 2 minutes to do that. My butt is sore, I'll tell you that.
Put me on the spot, Shelly.
Yeah, I know. You put Katie on the spot.
I'm much more of a let's go run 10 miles instead of a time for some push-ups, ladies.
10 miles. For those of us who have artificial body parts, running 10 miles is out.
Ankle. Ugh.
All right. Well, I feel a little bit better. In fact, I might stay standing for just a minute, although I've got a great big glow. Does it look like I have a halo? Just that a little bit. Okay. Let me see if I can share my screen again. And we'll share some updates related to the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. Okay, so I hope many of you know, we've been spending the last few years really focused on physical activity and increasing rates of physical activity across societal sectors in the Kansas City Metro. We have plans for 10 sectors to be started. What you can see on here is we have 8 that have actively completed strategy and tactic development. So we just want to give you an update on each of them. Anyone is welcome to join. Many of you are already parts of these sectors, but again, anyone is welcome to join any of them. For the school sector, that group meets monthly, generally on the 4th Wednesday of the month, and they've begun to think about implementation groups. They have 2 groups they're trying to get started. One is related to professional development, and the other is related to advocacy. So how do we ensure that kids in schools are getting adequate physical activity and physical education, which ties into the physical literacy that Joey was just talking about? How do we ensure that teachers, whether it's the PE teacher or classroom teachers, have adequate knowledge and education around physical activity? So that's what they're looking for in terms of professional development. For healthcare, we meet on varying Tuesdays. We have 3 implementation groups for that sector. They're around curriculum, or EIM is exercise is medicine, national intervention to think about physical activity assessment and goal setting within healthcare settings in order to have providers have those conversations with their patients. We really have to go upstream a little bit, ensure that in health professional schools, there's curriculum related to physical activity. There's also billing and reimbursement. So we know that in the healthcare setting, if there's not an opportunity for billing or reimbursement, very difficult for providers to take the time to have those conversations. So what do we do? How do we ensure that there is reimbursement so that those conversations can be had in a variety of healthcare settings? And then there's the Just Walk program, and I'll share a little bit more about that in just a minute. In the early childhood sector, that group meets on the 4th Thursday of the month. There are 4 implementation groups in the early childhood sector. They're professional development, policy and practice, tracking our impact. So how do we know we're making a difference, and what are resources that would be valuable within that setting? The sports sector is really trying to establish regular meetings. They do meet, just not on a consistent basis like the 4th Thursday of the month. They have 3 implementation groups that are just now getting started. They are Alliance, Access, and Advocacy. The mass media sector. So how do we communicate this information better? They meet on the 3rd or 4th Tuesday of each month, and they're really working on what's the media messaging for our overall physical activity plan, and how does that align with each of the different sectors. Parks and Recreation and Infrastructure have been meeting together. They meet generally on the 4th Wednesday of the month. They have 4 implementation groups they're working to get started. Empowerment, engagement, education, that's 1. 2nd is policy. 3rd is around design, which relates to the built environment. The 4th is around programming. So just like Joey mentioned, what's that programming that can happen in parks and in the park and recreation setting that helps improve physical activity broadly. Faith-based settings, they are not meeting on a regular basis right now, but we are exploring how we get a Just Walk pilot project going that would meet at churches. If anybody's interested in that, we welcome people joining us. And the business and industry sector is just now getting started. We are working on developing the strategies and tactics. We've just sent out our survey related to that and are hoping to get good feedback. That is primarily related to employee wellness or worksite wellness. And then public health is the last sector that we haven't had a chance to get started yet, but we hope to launch that sector sometime this fall. So I did want to share upcoming meetings. Anyone is welcome to join these groups. I'll talk a little bit about how you can do that. One way is through the evaluation at the end of this program. You can sign up for any of the sectors or all of the sectors through that evaluation. The school sector has 3 meetings coming up. You can see those dates there. Again, if you sign up to participate in the school sector, that information will be sent to your inbox. Early childhood, for anyone who's interested in joining the early childhood or hearing more about what's going on, we're meeting today, immediately following this meeting. I will have either Katie or Evelyn drop in the chat the Zoom link. It will be a separate Zoom link from this meeting. But again, anyone is welcome to join to hear what's going on in the early childhood sector. In terms of parks and rec and infrastructure, they're meeting next week. So if you'd like to sign up to participate in that meeting, again, use the evaluation to do that. Mass media happened to meet earlier this week. Their next meeting is going to be toward the end of July. Healthcare, we're meeting on July 12th. But just to highlight the Just Walk program, for those of you who don't know, it is a program that is led by healthcare professionals. There is a 5 to 10 minute conversation on a health related topic, followed by a walk for the rest of an hour. Right now, this program that we're supporting meets on the second Saturday of the month in Pearson Park in Kansas City, Kansas. Anyone is welcome to join. We are exploring the opportunity to expand and have multiple walks around the metro, because we know that with gas prices where they are, people aren't going to be driving long distances to get to these walks. So we're trying to make sure they're offered in locations that are convenient to more people. And how to register for the meeting. So again, I'd encourage you to use the evaluation. When you sign up for sectors, Eventbrite registrations will be sent directly to your inbox. You can register that way. And that's what some of these pictures that you see on your screen right now are. And on the bottom right, that's our Kansas City Physical Activity Plan website. You can always go to the Physical Activity Plan website, look at our calendar, and Zoom links will be included there. Registration is not necessarily required. It just makes it easier for it to show up on your calendar. Okay, I don't know if Robin has been able to join us. Robin has had multiple things going on this morning, and I can't see him right now. So I'm going to pause for a second and see if he's there to be able to give a quick update.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
We can, Robin, thanks.
Okay, sorry, I'm in addition to weighing in, I also am a clinical scientist, so I got my clinical hat on today. So I'm in the lab doing lots of stuff with blood. So I only have a quick minute, but one event we're having, and we do this about every other year, so you may remember the one from 2020, is we're hosting a physical activity summit on Thursday, September 29th. It's going to be a virtual summit, and we'll go 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And we're working on having a keynote speaker, so I won't reveal that person yet, but we will have a keynote speaker, a nationally known speaker who works in physical activity and public health. But most of the time of this 3-hour meeting is going to be spent in breakouts room doing what we call cross-sector collaboration. So getting the exactly like what we were talking about in some of the Q&A after Dr. Lightner's talk, how do parks work with schools? How do schools work with health departments, things like that. So that's the bulk of the time that we'll have at the Physical Activity Summit. So we'll send out a save the date right here, and it'll be in your inbox in the next couple of days as well, along with registration links. So and as it gets closer, we'll start sending around the agenda for the meeting as well. So hopefully we see you all on Thursday, September 29th from 9 a.m. to noon. And this will actually replace our next weighing in quarterly meeting. So we won't have a weighing in quarterly meeting, it'll be this meeting. So thanks a lot, everybody.
Thanks, Robin. And in preparation for that, each of the sectors will also be hosting what we're calling a sector summit meeting. So in August or September, the sectors that we just talked about will be having a national expert presenting at their sector meetings with an opportunity to talk about what does that mean in the what what are some opportunities for us in the Kansas City area related to increasing physical activity in that particular sector. So again, encourage you to sign up to get information about the sectors as we start securing speakers and scheduling those dates. So really excited about all the opportunities that are coming up this fall. So now I'm going to transition to a few updates and reminders. I'm going to let Veronica jump on for just a second. I hope most of you already know that Children's Mercy has a community garden. I'm going to let her share a little bit about what's going on in the garden this year.
Yeah,
Veronica?
so Shelley was saying, some of you may or may not know that Children's Mercy has a community garden. Just a little background on the community garden. It was started in 2018. It was placed on a vacant lot north of Children's Mercy Hospital. Since then, it's now a thriving green space. We have about 6 raised beds. We have a 30 by 40 in-ground bed. We have a beehive as pictured in the slide. We also have a paved path around the perimeter of our garden. This year, we planted 17 fruit trees with the help of our friends at Giving Grove, Kansas City. And as you see this new shelter, this was just installed. We're super excited about it. You know, we hope to provide our volunteers and visitors with some protection during really hot or sunny days, but we also hope that it can form part of a community gathering space in the future. So this year we've harvested about 100 pounds of produce, which brings us up to about 1,600 pounds of produce since the garden opened in 2018. If you're interested in learning more about the garden, please take advantage of our staffed work days. They happen on Tuesdays, so the first 3rd Tuesdays of the month from 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. And the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays from 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. We'll have a member from our garden team out there to show you around and answer any questions. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to communitygarden@cmh.edu.
Thanks, Veronica. That's a great update. I hope you enjoy those pictures that we have here. I will also let you know that we have just shared our fantastic quarterly newsletter. And that shouldn't say winter, that's actually our summer newsletter, although we're trying to subtly get you cooler by suggesting winter on this slide. Yeah, we shared it in our June monthly email, but if anybody is interested in copies or downloading that and you're having trouble finding it, just let us know. We're happy to share it with you again. I did also want to let you know about the Double Up Food Bucks program. This is a program that doubles your SNAP food dollars when you spend them on fruits and vegetables. This gives you a little bit of an idea about what it is, where it works, how it works, and who the partners are that are involved. If you'd like more information about it, they have it available on the Mid-America Regional Council website, or we're happy to share that information with you as well. This is really more of a community resource for families that participate in SNAP. And we know fruits and vegetables are important, and this is one way to make it easier for people to afford those. I will also mention that while we are so thrilled to have Katie, Amy join our team, we still have one open position. If anyone knows of someone who might be a good fit for the work that we do, or knows somebody who's interested or interested yourself, please let us know. You're welcome to email myself or Dr. Robin Shook directly, and we can share the link for the application. So now I'd like to open it up to anyone else who's on our call today to share any updates you'd like the rest of the group to know about. Sounds like we've done a great job of already sharing information.
Hi, Shelley. We have the kids triathlon coming up, and I actually just emailed you because you guys normally participate and come to our water area in transition. So that is coming up in August. And then right before that, we also have our adult Kill Creek Triathlon. So we are always looking for volunteers. And so if you and your family want to come out and volunteer and or participate, we'd love to have you. And then our biggest one of the year is our Shawnee Mission Park Triathlon. So a lot of stuff going on there. Very excited. I will be on the mic DJing at those events. So if you'd like to meet me in person, you can please come on by and cheer me on. And otherwise, we've Katie Renner, our race director and special events coordinator here at JC Purity. She's been running kids triathlon camps. And so this is a great way to introduce kids to the sport of triathlons and running and biking and swimming. And so she's had a lot of success with kids getting more involved with the sport, being more active, because sometimes a lot of kids with social, they have a hard time getting the team environment. So this has been a great mental health as well for some of those kids, because I believe she had a kid that was homeschooled as well that joined the program this year. So it's been fantastic, huge success. So I will go share the link for the Shawnee Mission Try as well. But again, if you guys don't want to compete, we would love to have you come out and volunteer and or just come cheer some folks on. I've got extra cowbells. Just let me know.
That's a great update, Allison. I will say, as someone who has been the volunteer for the water station at the Kids Try, it is one of the funnest things you've ever done. There are some kids who are quite impressive athletes, and then there are some who are just learning. In fact, I remember one of my best memories from that is a young girl who I think had to be, I don't know, 6 maybe. She was one of the last ones to come in. She was riding her bike, and I think it might have had training wheels and a flag and tassels. Super cute, but she was out there giving it her all, and she did it. So quite impressive to go out there and see the kids who are willing to participate in some of those activities. So thanks for sharing that. Anyone else?
I have one more. Sorry, I forgot.
For adults?
Actually, this is for families. So we also have our adventure races that we do. And we have a summer one and then a fall one. So we just had the summer one at Shawnee Mission Park. Huge success. We actually had a lot of families come out. It was the cutest thing. And then we have our fall one coming up, and that's going to be out at Kill Creek Park along with the Timbridge Adventure Center. So I will include a link for that as well. But this literally gets people to come out of the woodworks because you get all kinds at these adventure races. And if you have never done an adventure race, I strongly encourage you to come out and try it. They're super cool. You don't have to know how to use a compass. You can watch a YouTube video right before if you want, but there are clues and stuff that kind of help you navigate. But it really is a fantastic time. And now I'm done. Sorry. Thanks, Shelley.
Thanks, Allison. I will say one of the things we haven't really mentioned much, but ties into a lot of things that we've been talking about here is getting out to nature and the benefits of being outside, regardless of whether or not you're engaging in moderate to vigorous physical activity. There is lots of research that would support simply getting outside improves mood. It by default, you're more physically active than if you weren't. So I would encourage everyone to take advantage of something outside this summer. Okay. Anything else?
I have one thing I'd like to share. It's related to our Missouri Farm to School and Early Care work that we have been doing. The state agency and MU Extension leaders have been working with USDA and are holding in-person meetings across the state. Our next meetings are in July, and July 18th is our St. Joe meeting, which is closest to Kansas City. I'm sorry, I tried to pull for Kansas City and the rest of the team chose St. Joe. So, but I did drop a link to those in the chat, and our July meetings are in St. Joe, Kirksville, and Columbia. So if you're interested in furthering farm to school in the state of Missouri, please join the meeting and the discussion.
And Lisa, it's farm to early care and education programs as well, correct?
Yes. Thank you. We're trying to get, we're hoping that people will begin to just look at it all as one. But yes, farm to school and early care, all centering on the same 3 core objectives. So thank you for adding that, Shelley.
You bet. We're excited to think about how we can do that as well. Anything else? We've got a QR code up here to make it easy for you to complete the evaluations and to sign up for any of our sectors. So feel free to grab your cameras and scan that QR code. Keeps it really easy. And we really love your feedback. We do look at it. We do take it into consideration. One of the questions on the evaluation is if you're looking for any specific topics. So we're always looking for good information to share with the group. I will say the next quarterly meeting is going to be the summit. So the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan Summit will take the place of our next quarterly meeting. And at our December quarterly meeting, we hope to be sharing information from the hospital's most recent community health needs assessment. Beyond that, again, I like planning ahead. So suggestions for next year's quarterly meetings are always appreciated. As a reminder, right after this meeting, the early childhood sector is going to be meeting. If you would like that Zoom link, please let us know in the chat. We'll share that with you. Look forward to seeing some of you there. And for those of you who don't know, it is Great Outdoors Month. So take Dr. Seuss's advice. Get on your way. Okay, and with that, we'll wrap up our June weighing in quarterly meeting. Thank you so much again for joining us, and thanks again to Dr. Leitner for his outstanding presentation. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Shelley. See you, everybody.